Hello. The purpose of this video is to solve the kilometer converter program found in your textbook. You should make sure you understand the basics of the chapter concerning functions before trying to understand this video. This video assumes that you have knowledge of functions and how to use them. Write a program that asks the user to enter a distance in kilometers and then converts that distance to miles. The conversion formula is as follows. Miles equals kilometers times 0.6214. So this program could be written in as few as 3 programming lines, but this program is given to us at the end of the functions chapter, and as such, it is assumed that we'll be using functions to solve this problem. Now, in your studies for this chapter, you should have learned the reasons why functions are used in programs. Functions make things a little more complicated for small programs, but when you get into large programs, such as writing windows or other things that require a lot of organization, then functions are very much needed. So functions are definitely out there, and as a student, you need to learn to manage and handle functions. So that is one of the points of this chapter. So what I'm going to do a little bit differently this time is I'm going to let you see how this program runs first, and then we're going to build it. So I think it's a good idea if you, as a programmer, can try to visualize how your program is going to run before you actually start writing code. And that's one of the purposes of writing pseudocode, is to help you visualize how the program will run before you actually begin coding. All right. So we're going to run this program now and let you see how it would behave after it's completed. We're not going to let you see the source code right now. We're just going to run it for you. And you can see the program is running, and I'm going to enter 100 here. Okay. And 100 kilometers is 62.14 miles. So that's how the program runs without seeing the code. All right, so let's discuss how we might complete this program and use functions. So one of the things we're going to need is a way to display and talk about our pseudocode. So he or she, let's pull that over here. So if we think about this program here in terms of 3 steps. One would be to get from the users their input for the number of kilometers they want to convert. In our demo there, we entered 100. And then we called a function to convert the kilometers to miles, and then we displayed the miles. So that was how we did that. And this is basically the pseudocode. We've got an input section. We've got a processing section, and we've got an output. So let's break that down into what we're going to do in our programming Python here. So I'll begin by setting up a main function. And so there's our definition for our main function. Okay. So, and let's go ahead and turn on line numbers. That might help a little bit. All right. So I'm going to get from the user the distance in kilometers. So in our case, when we ran the program, we entered 100 here. And so that's the line that does it. Now notice, because we are using a decimal in our answer, that we're going to want to float this. We're going to want to allow the user to enter fractional miles. I mean, they could have 100.5 miles here or something of that nature. So we're going to float this as opposed to inting that. We don't want to restrict kilometers to only integers. All right, so we're going to display the distance converted to miles. Now, we're going to show miles. We're going to create a function called show miles, and we're going to pass the argument kilometers to the show miles function. So Um, the show miles function converts the parameter km from kilometers to miles and displays the results. Now notice something that happens here when we define the show miles function. The kilometers argument was passed to the km parameter, and I think it's important that you begin to understand the difference between an argument and a parameter. But notice that the parameter does not have to have the same name as the argument, and that's one of the features of functions, is to be able to rename them here. That way, if you're in a large programming group and somebody asks you to write a function that returns the miles to kilometers, you don't really need to worry about what the main programmer, the lead programmer, uses as a variable in his or her program. As they use kilometers, you're going to use km. So you just you just use your own variable, and that's one of the reasons why this is allowed. So the kilometers argument will be passed into the km parameter here. Okay, and that's part of understanding functions from your textbook. Okay, so let's continue on with our thinking here. So now we're going to calculate the miles, and the purpose of the function is to perform this one line of code, which is to convert the kilometers to miles. So kilometers can be converted to miles by multiplying by this known constant of 0.6214. Okay, and then we're going to display the km here. So we're going to print the kilometers, and then we're going to say 100 kilometers equals 62.14 miles. And we're going to format the miles with 3 digits after the decimal. So that's why we see 0.14 right there. And then we're going to have the word miles display over here. Okay. And then we only have one thing left to do, and that is call the main function. Don't forget to do that. I've had many students email me or text me or something. And what they're wanting to do is they've written their program. They think it runs perfectly, but they can't get it to run. And generally what happens is they've forgotten to call the main. That even happens to me. So be careful that when you're working with functions that you always call the main function. That's going to start everything off. Most of the time it's called main. It doesn't have to be main, but most of the time it's called main. All right, so let's run this program and see how it goes. All right, it's running. So let's put in 100. And we got 62.14. Now, the only thing we want to do is we want to clean this up just a little bit. What we want to do is replace this right here. This is a known constant. So let's go ahead and copy that. And let's call this conversion factor. And let's set it equal to that. And then let's replace this as a variable down here. Now, some students get a little confused right here. This technically is not a global variable. This is a global constant. Global constants are okay to use. Global variables are not okay to use. And because of that, we have capitalized all of the characters in this variable name here so that everybody understands that it is a constant. So the relationship between kilometers and miles is always going to be the same. So as long as that's the same, then it's considered a constant. So we've made a significant change here that makes this program more readable and more understandable. So let's go ahead and run this again with the change made and make sure that it still runs and returns the same answer. So we'll run this, and yes, everything's working fine. Now, the only thing else to do would be to run this program for a couple of other, so we could run this for 10 kilometers, and that comes out fine. And we could run it for 1,000 kilometers, and that comes out fine. And we could even run it for a fractional amount. Maybe the number of miles to work, kilometers to work today was 25.4, And you can see that's 15.74 miles. Hope you're enjoying the programming class, and this concludes the video.